Federal Railroad Administration, Office of Railroad Safety and Hazardous Material Compliance Manual, December 2011. Chapter 2. Chapter 2, Basis for Regulation and Inspection. 2.1, Statutory Authority. The Federal Hazardous Material Transportation Law directly secretary to Transportation Secretary to issue the regulations for the safe transportation, including security, hazard material, and commerce. The law specifically provides that such regulations apply to the person who, 1, transports hazardous material in commerce, 2, causes hazardous material to be transported in commerce, 3. Design, manufactures, fabricated, inspection, mark, maintain, recondition, repair, test, package, container, packaging component that is presented, marked, or certified or sold as qualified using the transportation of hazard material in commerce. Prepare and accept the hazard material for the transportation in commerce. 5. Are responsible for safety transportation of hazard materials in commerce and certify compliance with any of the requirement that the Federal Hazard Material Transportation Law is in implementing regulations. The law further provides that such regulations govern all the safety aspects, including security of the transportation. Hazmat Material Secretary considering application appropriate. 2.2. Scope of the regulatory and authority. The regulations implemented by the Hazmat Material Regulations are found in Title 49 CFR Part 171 through 180. The central premises of the Hazardous Material Regulations is that offering the transportation of compliance, offering transportation acceptance for the transportation of hazardous material is prohibited unless certain standards are met. Hazardous material shipment is not prepared in accordance with the requirements of the Hazardous Material Regulations may not be offered for transportation or transported by air, highway, railroad, or water. Um, as such as the hazmat material regulations impose regulatory on person who, 1, performs the advance of the transportation of preparing a hazmat material for transportation, pre-transportation formation, 2, the performing transportation movement, incidental loading, unloading, storage functions, or 3, designs, manufacture, inspects, and maintains package that the representative of the sold and qualified for use for the transportation and the hazmat material in commerce. Functions are not pre-transportation functions. The transportation functions are otherwise not subject to the hazmat material packaging requirements, generally not regulated by the hazmat material regulations. Storage of the package and continuing any hazmat material at the shipper facility prior to the packaging being offered to the transportation unloaded with the hazmat material for a packaging found to deliver the hazmat material in the destination storage of the railway car containing the hazmat material on a private track. Alright, 2.2.1 Pre-transportation functions. The pre-transportation functions are activities necessary to assure that the safe transportation of hazmat material are required to be performed prior to the transportation of hazmat in commerce. The pre-transportation functions include, but are not limited to, determining the hazard class of the hazardous material, and selecting the hazard material packaging, filling a hazard material packaging, um, securing enclosure of the hazard material packaging. 6. Marking and labeling placard packaging indicating what contains the hazard material. 6. Preparing shipping paper, certifying shipment of safe transportation compliance with the hazard material regulations. 8. Providing maintenance and emergency response for information. 9. Loading and blocking, bracing hazard material package of the freight container, other conveyances. 10. Segregation of hazard material package of the importable cargo. Incompatible hazard material package of the incompatible cargo. Pre-transportation functions must be performed in accordance with the requirements of the hazmat materials regulations. Any person who performs pre-transportation function and offer function related to the hazmat ship is considered a person who offers. An offerer is defined as the term as 1, a person who performs responsible for performing pre-transportation function required by the hazmat material regulations. Tenders to make hazmat available to carry the transportation comments the carriers of who perform functions of required with the hazmat regulation, coordination, acceptance of the hazmat transportation commerce with the transportation hazmat, and another carrier continuing with the transportation and commerce without performing the pre-transportation function are specifically excluded with the definition of an offer. Accordingly, the passenger is responsible. Accordingly, the person is responsible for performing the function in accordance with the hazmat regulations. 222, transportation function. The Hazmat Material Regulations defines transportation generally as the movement of the property, loading and unloading structural incidents for the movement. The Hazmat Material Regulations provide the transportation commerce begins with the carrier to take the physical possession of the hazmat and propose the transportation continues until the hazmat is delivered to its destination indicated by the shipment and paper. One exception of the general rule for the rail transportation, specifically a rail car transportation, hazmat material is considered in transportation for purposes of the Hazmat Material Regulation until it is delivered to the private track or siding. It is true that even though the rail car is delivered in the final destination indicated on the shipping paper, while the railway car containing the hazmat material is in transportation, it is subject to the requirements of the Hazmat Material Regulations. For the purpose of the Hazmat Material Regulations, a carrier is a person who transports passengers or property in the commerce of the railway, aircraft, motor vehicle, or vessel. Common contract private carriers are specifically included with the definition. The FRA jurisdictional reach is broader under the Hazmat Material Regulations and under the railroad statutes. 223. Other regulated functions and standards. The Hazmat Regulations contains standards applicable to packaging in which the hazmat material is transported in Title 49 CFR Part 178, General Packing Standards 179, Railroad Tanker Car Specifications, and 180, the continuing qualification, maintenance, and packaging. The hazmat material requirements require the person who directly affected the hazmat material transportation safety referred to the hazmat employee to train with the requirements of the hazmat material regulation. It is responsible for the person employing the individuals preparing hazmat material transportation hazmat material to ensure those individuals are properly trained in accordance with the hazmat material regulations. The Hazmat Material Regulations also contain requirements to ensure the security of the hazmat material in the transportation. Title 49 UCFR Part 172, Subpart I, the Section 172, 800, 172 to 802 offers transportation of the hazmat materials, develop and main safety security plans addressing the minimal personal security, unauthorized access, in-route security of the hazmat material transportation. Section 172, 820 requires the carriers of certain security-sensitive materials to annually analyze the safety risks of the routes over which the carrier transports the materials, shows those routes for the least overall safety and security risk for such transportation. Enforcement of route analysis regulation primarily the responsible of the headquarters staff. Alright, 2.2.4 Structure of Hazmat Material Regulations. FRA's Hazmat Inspection Program is primarily responsible for monitoring compliance with the following of the parts of the Hazmat Material Regulation. 171 General Information Regulations, definitions. 172 Hazmat Material Table, special provisions, Hazmat Material Communication, emergency response information, training requirements, security plans. 173 Shippers for general requirements for shipping packaging. 174 Carriage by the rails. 178 Specification for packaging. 179 Specification for the tank cars. 180 the containing qualification maintenance for the packaging. Alright, 2.3 Inspection Authority. The Federal Hazmat Material Transportation Law provides authority of the Secretary to inspect the facilities record with the related hazmat material transportation, specifically Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 5121 provides the designated agent secretary, including the FRA certified by the hazmat material inspectors, the authority to inspect and investigate at a reasonable time in a reasonable manner records and properly retain relating to the regulated hazmat material functions described in Section 2.1. The Secretary has delegated the enforcement authority for the Federal Hazmat Transportation Law Model Administration, particularly the FRA Administrator, is delegated the authority of carry out all the functions vested in the Secretary by Title U.S. Standard Code 5121 A, B, C, D, 5122, 5123, and 5124, with particular emphasis on the transportation and shipment of the hazmat by the railroad. Accordingly, the FRA has an authority to enter the property railroad office and other entities performing the functions subject to the hazmat material regulations for purposes of inspecting, monitoring compliance with the hazmat material regulation. The authority supplemented by the power to subpoena persons and documents and holding hearings and conducting investigations. Because of the offers are authorized to introduce hazmat material regulations into the transportation only compliance with the federal hazmat law and its implementing regulation, the FRA has an obligation to investigate possible violation points in which shipments originate, monitoring compliance on a regular basis. The legal standard is by engaging the shipment of dangerous commodities, companies and individuals constructively accept the necessity of proper announced inspections. In order to ensure that all hazardous material shipments are designated as such and comply with all applicable statutes and regulations, the Department of Transportation has interpreted statutory authority to inspect that include all shipments and shipping documentation other than just declared to contain hazardous material and to undeclared hazardous material shipment. This is necessary to ensure that all hazardous material shipments are designated as such comply with the applicable statutes and regulations. This authority was enhanced by the Congress enacting the Hazardous Material Transportation Safety Security Reauthorization Act of 2005. With the rise in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 5121 that specifically authorized the agent of the secondary open package to identify the undeclared, non-compliant hazmat material shipment, inspection temporarily detaining suspicious packages. 3. The inspecting, issuance, and emergency orders, restriction, prohibitions, out of service orders, and address unsafe conditions for the practice of the pre-SMH Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration published the final ruling on March 2nd, 2011, proposing department-wide procedures implementing an enhanced authority. However, the internal procedures have not yet been published that would allow the FRA to implement enhanced authority. 231 Summary. The FRA inspectors are authorized to inspect the railroad, offer, and other facilities, all pertaining to the documentation whenever the doing so would responsibly be expected to serve the purpose of asserting the other encouraging compliance with the hazardous material regulations. Neither a warrant nor any other prior approval is necessary. The inspector or other enforcement personnel need and only to conduct the affairs courteously included displaying credentials when asked in such a manner disrupting the facility's business as little possible. Simply stated, any person affecting the transportation of hazardous material in common is subject to the inspection may be cited with a non-compliant condition under the Federal Hazardous Material Transportation Law of the Hazardous Material Regulations. Moreover, any activity affecting the transportation of hazardous material in compliance is subject to investigation, inspection, determination, compliance with the Federal Hazardous Material Transportation Law and the Hazardous Regulation. Alright, 2-4, coordination with the Department of Transportation Module Administration and other federal agencies. In August 1990, the five operating administrations with the Department of Transportation reasonable for the conducting inspection enforcement programs for the Federal Hazmat Material Transportation Law adopted by the coordinated with the guidelines for hazmat material inspection enforcement, the documentation established general conditions guidelines for the fostering and the cooperation sharing of the information perceiving each of the administrators specifically responsibility for overseeing the safe transportation of hazmat material. The guidelines are included with the Appendix B of this manual should be served with the guidance for the inspector or the other FRA technical representative with interacting with other operating administrators of the Department of Transportation during inspection enforcement activities. In such addition, the Department of Transportation and U.S. Coast Guard have entered into a memorandum of understanding providing guidelines for the coordination between the two agencies. 2.5 Hazardous Material Regulatory Development. The hazardous material regulations are promulgated by the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration cooperation with a representative of the Department of Transportation operating on the Federal Aviation Administration, Federal Railroad Administration, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and the U.S. Coast Guard of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security under the authority of Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 5103. In recent history, essentially all the work was done on the railroad-related regulations has been done by the staff of the FRA with the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration acting as an editor, maintaining module consistency. This has been valuable, productive, and collegial and a colleague relationship. Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration with input with the effective module administration also rules on the application for the hazard material regulations special permits. The FRA headquarters of the Hazmat Materials Division and the offices, the RCC, work together with the Communications and the Pipeline Hazard Material Safety Administration, FRA, and the concerns related with the transportation of hazmat material rail. Headquarters of the Hazmat Material Division staff provides technical, chemical, engineering, operating expertise of the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration. Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration ruling makes procedures as are set forth by the Title 49 CFR Part 106. Inspectors are encouraged to make suggestions for the addition of amendments to the Hazmat Material Regulation improve safety, and such recommendations must be submitted through the relevant regional specialist forwarding the staff director and Hazmat Material Division. This is inserted tab for Chapter 3 is here, and Chapter 3 is roles and responsibilities.